Indeed, Ukraine did not dominate the vast majority of proceedings last night. There was a lengthy discussion. Present in the room for most of it was President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. As we know, this has been a momentous week for Ukraine as they opened up the first cluster of chapters in relation to negotiations to become eventually a member of the European Union. So that was a key thing. Also, there's a discussion on the situation on the battlefield in Ukraine. And then when Volodymyr Zelensky left, there was a robust debate about a decision by Antonio Costa, the President of the European Council, which represents the member states, to engage in a line of communication with the Kremlin on 2 occasions. Now, the idea being, of course, that when the war ends with Russia, it has to end in some sort of negotiations. But some countries like Germany, like France, the Baltic countries feel that this wasn't the right time because it's clear that Vladimir Putin is not ready to end the war and engage in any meaningful process. Other countries, though, other diplomats made the point that, at the end of the day, opening up channels isn't a very problematic issue if it does materialise that there could be some sort of peace process. And importantly, Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainians are saying that the European Union, the EU, really needs to take better control when it comes to diplomatic channels in this regard. Maeve?
And meanwhile, Shona, over at the NATO headquarters, Pete Hegseth has been calling for a review of US military presence all across Europe in a very feisty address to NATO allies. Fill us in.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, we saw a relatively successful G7 summit where the US and European allies seemed to have a much more convivial relationship. We saw the memorandum of understanding being signed by the United States and Iran. Relations between Trump and the allies seemed good. So there was an expectation that going into that defence ministerial meeting yesterday with NATO that there could have been, a reset in relations somewhat. But Pete Hegseth really upended that hope for allies. He went in there all guns blazing, lambasting allies for not helping the United States when it came to the war in Iran. He essentially said that they abandoned him. And then he announced what he described as a force review, essentially a review of the United States troops all across Europe and all across NATO territory. This comes at the same time when the United States is withdrawing assets and capabilities from the NATO force model. So things like certain submarines, F-16s, F-35, long-range strike capabilities will be removed and no longer accessible for NATO. Take a listen to Pete Hegseth yesterday.
The United States has defended Europe for generations. And the president said, all he said was that our jets would need to take off from bases in Europe or our ships from ports to strike targets in the Middle East. Iranian targets that threaten European interests even more directly than they threaten us. But too many of our allies said no, or tried to drown us in arcane legal debates, or criticized us publicly for doing what they aren't prepared or able to do themselves. It was shameful.